that Saddam Hussein is actually accused of. He is accused of war crimes, of genocide, but the process of gathering evidence on the larger crimes, the larger accusations, has been very slow, and I think that is why we're seeing the legal process now focusing on what happened in the town of Dujail.
Caroline Hawley in Baghdad, thank you. In the third round of Lebanon's elections, the Christian former army general Michel Aoun and his allies are expected to win 15 out of 16 seats in the Maronite Christian heartland northeast of Beirut. It's a major blow to the existing Christian opposition, but 28 out of the 128 seats still remain to be voted on in the final round on Sunday.
Lebanon's elections have been a prolonged affair, already stretching over 3 weekends. But there was nothing predictable about this latest round. The man with most to smile about was Michel Aoun, a Christian former army general who only returned from exile in France just over a month ago. He triumphed in the Christian areas northeast of Beirut, complicating what had been seen as more or less a straight fight between Lebanon's pro- and anti-Syrian forces. Lebanon's Interior Minister Hassan al-Sabeh announcing Mr. Aoun's victory in his own constituency. At the moment he has just over 20 seats in a parliament of more than 120, but although he won't have a majority himself, his surprise success is being seen as a sign that Lebanon's Maronite Christians have rediscovered a political voice of their own. Mr. Aoun is a controversial figure who played a key role in the final phase of the country's civil war. He's always been seen as firmly anti-Syrian, but in this election he was actually allied with some leading pro-Syrian candidates. His critics say he's become a tool in the hands of Damascus to divide the opposition. Mr. Aoun says the main issue is no longer whether one is for or against Syria, but simply achieving a better future for Lebanon. One man who's been disappointed by the results is the Druze leader Walid Jumblat, leader of the main anti-Syrian opposition. He won seats in his stronghold of Mount Lebanon, but had hoped that his forces would do better in Christian areas. The final composition of the new parliament will only be known after the fourth round of voting in northern Lebanon next weekend. All this is a reminder of just how complex Lebanon's factionalized politics can be. In the eastern Bekaa Valley, the pro-Syrian Hezbollah movement won all the seats it was competing for. Another area in the Bekaa Valley was won by allies of Saad Hariri, son of the former Prime Minister Rafiq Hariri. It was Rafiq Hariri's assassination in February which triggered massive anti-Syrian protests and led to the withdrawal of Damascus's forces, paving the way for the current unpredictable political situation. Stephen Speech, BBC News.
Well, with me now is Baria Al-Muddin. She's the foreign editor at Al Hayat newspaper. Welcome again to you. What do you make of the fact that we've seen Michel Aoun do so well? Many people have been very surprised.
Yeah, well, everybody knew, of course, that he was going to win himself. I think it is the number of people that he brought on with him that more or less was a surprise. The Lebanese scene has been very interesting lately because the new parliament that will be formed, hopefully by next Sunday, has very, very major tasks. Including implementing 1559, and that means, getting rid of the Hezbollah arms. Also, there is a talk of impeaching the President Lahoud. So there are lots of things.
But why does it seem that Christian voters have seemed to turn to Monsieur Aoun rather than to the other Christian politicians?
This election, something very positive happened. It was very democratic. It took place in a very, very nice atmosphere. We haven't seen anybody killed. Very minimal incidents, if you like. But what it has seen also is people winning on sectarian divide, meaning because you're a Christian Maronite, you're winning this, because you're a Druze, you're winning this, because you're a Sunni, winning this. What the young and the majority of the Lebanese are looking for is getting rid of all the system, basically, and people winning simply because they have a program that they would like to implement to unite the Lebanese and to indeed be able to face all the challenges in the coming few months.
What does it mean then, though, for Lebanon's relationship with Syria? This was the dominant issue that we saw so many people come onto the streets of Beirut about. Is it possible to assess at this point whether the standing of the pro-Syrian candidates in all of this.
Well, what is very interesting with General Michel Aoun, for example, everybody knew that he opposed Syria while he made alliances with the pro-Syrians. So this made people a little bit confused. It's a very confusing picture now in Lebanon because everybody seems to be in opposition. Of course, Syria does not exist on the ground as the Syrians claim, as you know. So I think the influence of Syria has not been really seen a lot in this election, and I think what happened at the Bekaa Valley states that, because it was the opposition to Syria more or less that won. Nevertheless, Syria is a neighbor of Lebanon. The geography cannot be changed. So hence I would imagine that the influence of Syria in Lebanon will stay with Lebanon for some time to come.
Okay, Barry Al-Muddin, thank you very much. And the final round of those elections takes place, of course, next Sunday. Now, we're just getting news from Italy that the referendum in Italy on the question of easing Italy's fertility law has been invalidated by a low turnout. For the poll to be valid, 50% of the electorate would have had to turn out. The Catholic Church had been calling for a boycott of the poll, so that's news in from Italy. The death toll from today's bomb attack in Indian-administered Kashmir has now risen to 12, with at least 50 others injured. The bombs thought to have been planted in a vehicle and went off outside a school in Pulwama, 50 kilometres south of the capital Srinagar. The BBC's Sanjoy Majumdar sent us this from Delhi.
Panic after the powerful explosion detonated outside this high school. Within minutes, the entire area was covered with debris. Parts of the school was damaged. Police believe the bomb was placed inside a truck or a smaller vehicle. Soon after, angry residents came out in protest at the delayed response of the local authorities. They raised anti-government slogans. Police opened fire and used tear gas to disperse the crowd, some of whom were wounded. The victims of the explosion have now been taken to a local hospital. Doctors say the condition of some of those injured is serious, and they fear the death toll could rise. India and Pakistan are in the midst of a peace process, but today's attack is yet another reminder that not everybody is on board. Sanjoy Majumdar, BBC News, Delhi.
The British Prime Minister Tony Blair has said he'll be diplomatic but firm in the escalating row over Britain's €5.3 billion European Union rebate. Hours before key talks with the German and French leaders, he called for fundamental changes to the whole EU budget. But at a meeting of EU foreign ministers in Luxembourg, France has again warned that Europe could face a financial crisis if Britain doesn't compromise. The BBC's Europe editor Mark Mardell reports.
All smiles in Moscow, but this is the warmest welcome Tony Blair can expect in a week of jetting round Europe. And after this, the talk will all be about the EU's double trouble, building up to a potential bruising meeting in Brussels. Both problems are being discussed at a meeting of foreign ministers in Luxembourg. This is the new French foreign minister, a cardiologist and former mayor of Lourdes. It would need strong medicine or a miracle to resurrect the constitution after the French said no.
The indications are, I think, that there is a general consensus that decisions on whether to proceed with ratification or not should be left to individual member states.
The other crisis all the other